Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? 2022, Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from Black Lives Matter Plaza here in Washington, D.C. on the second anniversary of the death of George Floyd. Coming up, we'll show you the White House ceremony. President Joe Biden signing the executive order dealing with police reform. Vice President Kamala Harris spoke. A number of CDC members were there, including the family members of many individuals who have been killed by police. We'll hear from a number of folks with regard to that executive order. Mark Morial, CEO of the National Urban League, Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, Chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, Congresswoman Cory Booker. We'll also hear from Attorney Generals Keith Ellison of Minnesota, Kwame Raoul of Illinois, also Senator Amy Klobuchar, Senator Cory Booker. We'll also hear from the President of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, as well as others. Also on today's show, we'll show you the clash today in the hearing on Capitol Hill between Senator Cory Booker and Republicans regarding the confirmation hearings of someone heading the ATF. There's not been a person confirmed by the United States Senate for the ATF since 2015. Republicans have been blocking that position. Cory Booker calls them out, saying, how can you be for police law enforcement, but you will not fill the position of the ATF? Also, we're hearing the names of the young folks who died in Uvalde, Texas. Unfortunately, 2 more children have died as a result of the gunshots from that particular shooting. Plus, we have the results from last night's primaries across the country, Georgia, Texas, and others. So it's a jam-packed show. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. It's time to bring the funk on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Folks, we're broadcasting live from Black Lives Matter Plaza here in the nation's capital. Just 2 blocks behind me is the White House, where today President Joe Biden welcomed family members of individuals who have been killed by police to sign the executive order many have been waiting for, dealing with law enforcement reform in this country. The United States Senate, namely Senator Tim Scott and Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, failed to move forward with a bill in the United States Senate. That took place in December. Folks have been asking this White House for action when it comes to police reform, and so today they unveiled this executive order on the second anniversary of the death of George Floyd. His family was there at the White House. They'll be joined by us shortly here at Black Lives Matter Plaza, including his daughter. This is what President Joe Biden, as well as Vice President Kamala Harris, had to say at today's signing just 2 hours ago.
Just long term. Hope.
I need audio. Come on.
Well, in need of hope yourself. That's why the executive order I'll be signing today is so important in my view. It's a measure of what we can do together to heal the very soul of this nation, to address profound fear and trauma, exhaustion, that particularly Black Americans have experienced for generations, and to channel that private pain and public outrage into a rare mark of progress for years to come. 2 summers ago, in the middle of the pandemic, we saw protests across the nation, the likes of which you hadn't seen since the 1960s. They unified people of every race and generation. Athletes and sports leagues, boycotted and postponed games. Companies and workers proclaimed Black Lives Matter. Students staged solidarity walkouts. From Europe to the Middle East to Asia to Australia, people saw their own fight for justice and equality, what we were trying to do. The message is clear. Enough. Just enough. Look, almost a year later. Almost a year later, a jury in Minnesota stepped up and they found a police officer guilty of murdering George Floyd, with officers and even a police chief taking the stand to testify against misconduct of their colleagues. I don't know any good cop who likes a bad cop. But for many people, including many families here, such accountability is all too rare. That's why I promised as president I would do everything in my power to enact meaningful police reform that is real and lasting. That's why I called on Congress to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. The Senate's in my desk.
I know, of course, that today, following yesterday, that all of our hearts, of course, are with the people of Uvalde, Texas, with the parents, with the children, with all the folks who said goodbye yesterday morning to someone they loved, not knowing that that goodbye would be their last. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. As the president said last night, we must have the courage to stand up to the gun lobby and pass reasonable gun safety laws. We must work together to create an America where everyone feels safe in their community, where children feel safe in their schools. And of course, that responsibility that we collectively have to ensure that all people feel safe in their community is what brings us together today. It is an honor to be joined by the families of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and many others. And I've met many of you before, and many times. And many others I am meeting for the first time. I am moved, as always, by your courage. You have felt so much pain, and you have endured unimaginable grief. You have experienced the anguish of losing someone you love and cherish. And yet, you are here, as you have been throughout the days of your grief, standing selflessly, full of grace and resilience, to speak up, to speak out, often against odds, great odds, to fight for a world where no one has to experience what you have been through. Your loved ones should be with us today. You should not have to mourn. You should never have had to mourn in order for our nation to feel your pain and to understand what is wrong.
I was at the White House for the signing ceremony, had an opportunity to chat with a number of people who were in the audience about this executive order, what it means for law enforcement, what it means for the black community, and what it means for the country. Here is their reaction.
Well, it is good. We should first say that. This is the President of the United States standing up for accountability, for transparency. This is Joe Biden delivering on his promises to use the power he has to make us safer, to build community trust, and to really, frankly, make changes in law enforcement. But obviously, we have more to go. As he himself has said, there's still work to do, and we're going to continue that work, and we've got to get some legislation passed.
Can the bill come up this year? Is it possible that it can get passed before November?
Look, I think it's possible. It's possible before November, or the lame duck. There's still work being done. There's still conversations and negotiations happening. I'm not going to take my hand off the plow until we get something done.
All right. I'm saying it's great important. I'm saying Nova's been on this initiative from the beginning, when it started. It passed Congress, but we had some problem in the Senate. We worked well with Cory Booker, and the president actually made this happen today. So we're moving forward, trying to get it passed through the Senate.
Everyone talks about the sheriff should have turned order police, but Noble has been very clear about the need for police accountability.
We got to hold the police officers accountable. We got to keep that that going forward because it's important. Just not for black law enforcement officers, for law enforcement as a whole. We got to build that trust back in the community, just like the president said. People got to start trusting the police.
This executive order is necessary, but so much more needs to be done. But we worked closely with the White House to craft this order so it reflected the best of the George Floyd bill that we could include in an executive action document. So this is going to change federal law enforcement, and I just want to issue a call to action to mayors and police chiefs around the country to look at this as a model for the change they need to lead.
I think today is a great start. We commend the president, the Congressional Black Caucus, and members like Cory and I and Karen Bass and Senator Booker. We've been fighting for justice on this, and so it's a start, but it is just that. It is progress. The president has done his job, and now Congress must do our job, especially our colleagues on the other side.
Representative Bush?
Yeah, exactly. 100% what the chairwoman just said. There are so many pieces. It's so nuanced, and we need so much. So much has been broken down that all of this adds up to accountability. It's adding up to transformative change that we need, that we've been fighting for a long time. Now we need actual law put in place that cannot be reversed when we get if we have somebody else in this seat. So we're calling on the Senate. We're calling on the Senate to do its job. The House, we did our job. The Black Caucus pushed this thing through. We did this back in the fall. We got to get this done.
So you of course, longtime mayor. You understand issues with police department. You actually called in the DOJ for your police department. Talk about this executive order for someone who says out there, you know what, I don't necessarily believe it does enough.
Well, it's an important day for the Floyd family and for the country. There's a way to make sure that we have appropriate police and community involvement. The president put his muscle behind his word, signed an executive order about the way it's got to be right. And it was a long time in coming. I wish Congress would act sooner rather than later. But in the absence of that, the president took strong action today.
All right.
Well, I will tell you, this is a real great day because even though the bill stalled in the Senate, Senator Booker and I turned to the administration and said, can you please do something? Can you please push the envelope? And that's exactly what this executive order is doing. And it is modeled after the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. So police accountability, the database, chokeholds, no-knock, all of those provisions are in this executive order. So it was a victory day today.
All right, go.
The president was leading by example. The Congress is yet to achieve passing George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, but the president is not waiting. He is led by example, and states and Congress should follow.
All right, cool. Just your assessment of today's executive order signed by the president.
Well, it was deeply emotional. So many families who've lost loved ones so tragically here. To witness the signing, this executive order is definitely a positive step. But as the president said, it's not a replacement for congressional action. You know, the case that my office did prosecuting Derek Chauvin for the murder of George Floyd, it was important, but it was one case. We need real systemic change. That's what this represents. So I'm really honored to be here. Feel like I got to witness some meaningful history and real happy about it, but still, we need a bill, and we're not going to quit till we get one.
All right.
The president was right. He was looking for Congress, which had the responsibility to pass this bill. George Floyd's death was seismic around this nation. The House passed the bill, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Shame on the Senate. But finally, I believe we have an executive order that responds to the pain, the frustration, but the need for justice. It is an important step forward. I can go home to tell the George Floyd family that wasn't here in this room, and many of them were here, that their brother, their uncle, their relative was honored today, along with the other families who have suffered. And this is about trust and building trust with police. This is about putting light into protect and serve. And I was gratified to see law enforcement in the room. The major chiefs, head of that is an African-American chief, but there were people from federal law enforcement, the FOP, because they understood that if we're going to protect and serve and build the trust in this nation, this executive order had to be signed. So I think we're moving forward. Work to be done, but we have moved forward. And now we must move forward on voting rights. H.R. 40, the Commission to Study Slavery and Reparations, which I am insistent that we move on. And we must move forward as well on the idea and the necessity of ensuring that November 22 does not see another reflection of oppression and depression of votes in this country. We will have something to talk about. This is a very good statement, but it's a very good action that the President has mentioned. We are acting today, and I think we'll feel the changes across America.
Got it. All right.
Step in the right direction of what the President can do through executive order. And I appreciate the fact that the President and Vice President Harris said and reiterated the need for the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act must get passed. So I think it was more important he did what he can from executive branch, but also knowing that the fight is not over. This is a great step. And we have many more steps to go for justice to reign when it comes to policing and for our communities to come together.
This is significant because the President is basically saying these are the standards that we're holding law enforcement to, federal law enforcement. And what I like about it is, one, he can get it done like that. He gets so frustrated when things are messing around in Congress the whole time. But then the second thing is it sets a standard for other states and people can follow those rules. But what I really want to see, of course, is federal legislation passed. Senator Booker has been leading the charge in the Senate. We have to get this done. And it was wonderful to see George Floyd's daughter and the look on her face as she sat with the President of the United States. It was a glimmer of hope that we can get there.
Folks, we are here on Black Lives Matter Plaza in Washington, D.C. With members of the Floyd family and other families that have been affected by police violence. I want folks to introduce themselves from my right. We're going to come all the way across. Go right ahead.
My name is Elisa Finley. I am the sister of Botham Jean, who was shot and killed on September 6, 2018 in Dallas, Texas.
I am Andre Locke, the father of Amir Locke, who was killed in Minneapolis on February the 2nd, 2022.
My name is Karen Wells, and I am the mother of Amir Locke.
My name is Phalonis Floyd. I'm the brother of George Floyd, and he was murdered on May 25th, 2020.
My name is Keita Floyd. I am the wife of Phalonis Floyd.
You guys step to my side so they can see you.
My name is Tiffany Hall, and I'm the niece of George Floyd.
Attorney Ben Crump, attorney for the family of George Floyd.
I'm Doc.
And the family of Botham Jean, the family of Amir Locke, the family of Terrence Prentice, and others who are in the White House today for the momentous occasion of the executive order.
I'm Dr. Tiffany Crutcher. I am the twin sister of Terrence Crutcher, who was killed on September 16, 2016 in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
It is good to see all of you here. I had to say that because unfortunately y'all are members of what many call a fraternity or sorority that folks don't want to be a part of. This is the second anniversary of the death of George Floyd, and unfortunately, there are way too many of these cases. I've interviewed far too many family members. There were folks who were there in the room interviewed as well. Just want to get your thoughts first off on the executive order, on the signing. Clearly, we all wanted the George Floyd Justice Act to be signed into law. That didn't happen. Frankly, Republicans in the Senate didn't do their job. But just your immediate assessment of the executive order and what it means for the black community, what it means for law enforcement, what it means for this country. Anyone can start.
Go ahead, Ben.
Deferring to you.
You know, I think as Attorney Monique Preston and I talked about, is incremental progress, and you have to continue to try to make progress any way you can. The president is extremely limited by what he can do based on our Constitution. He did what he could do today, and I think it was important, especially Roland Martin, to have that law enforcement accountability database where at least for the first time we have a governmental entity keeping track of police misconduct. And now we have to continue to look to the United States Senate to finally give us the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And we have to remember, this is not going to be easy. We haven't had meaningful police reform since President Lyndon Baines Johnson Great Society legislation in the 60s. It was after Rodney King was brutalized in 1988. They tried to get police reform. It didn't happen. After Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, hands up, don't shoot. They tried to get police reform. It didn't happen. And then after George Floyd was tragically tortured to death, we were optimistic as ever. But yet again, politics over people reared its ugly head. And that's why we have to continue to fight. And this was a first step, I believe, Scott Bolden.
Anyone else?
You know, I'll just jump in and say, you know, we appreciate the gesture. We appreciate it is historic to be there with so many family members who truly understand your pain and the purpose to continue to push. We've talked and these families, we've been to Capitol Hill time and time again, you know, starting in 2016, you know, I was lobbying, I was advocating for, you know, Congress to act. And I believe that if they would have acted back then, George Floyd would still be alive, Breonna Taylor would still be alive. But we know that our work is not finished. We know that we need for the House and the Senate to pass some meaningful and purposeful legislation like abolishing qualified immunity, changing the use of force standard in order for us to get some true accountability all the way down to the local level to prevent what happened to Terrence and Botham Jean and George Floyd from happening again. So we hope that this moment will be a trickle-down effect, and hopefully state lawmakers will use this as a model and adopt some of these policies so this can stop.
First of all, I'd just like to thank President Biden for pulling forth an effort like this. It's a bittersweet moment, but we're stepping in the right direction. Like I said, my brother was murdered a while back, 2 years ago, but this is the day that, you know, his remembrance. So I clearly want to say this. All these families who screamed and mourned for their loved ones, they were in there. People were watching their television, and they've been waiting on this George Floyd Policing Act to be passed. It still hasn't been passed, but it's the law of the land right now. So we got to keep pushing. We got to keep fighting, because we all here, Alyssa, Buddy, Emil Locke's mom, Aaron, and Terrence Crutcher, and Roland, thank you for giving us this chance. And I got my wife and my niece here with me. So, you know, this is a moment in a lifetime that you really don't never get a chance to see something like this. It's a blessing right now. Thank you.
Amen.
Again, I am Andre Locke, Buddy, Amir Locke's father, and it was a historic moment for each of us, an historic moment for each of us to be there to experience the signing of the federal police reform. It's a start. It has to start somewhere, and justice will prevail. God has his hand all over this. No matter what takes place, things are happening behind the scenes that whatever door God opens, no man can shut, or woman. Amen. So things are happening, and things will continue to happen with people like yourself, Roland Martin, that stand out and that gives us a voice, and that we're able to speak up and speak out about injustice. So thank you for allowing us that opportunity, and thank you for being who you are. We truly appreciate it. And for my son, Amir, you brought us all together. For George Floyd, you brought us all together. For your brother, welcome. You guys brought us all together. For your brother, for your twin, for Terrence Fletcher, you brought us all together. we have opportunity to change things ourselves, and it starts within, and it happens in our own communities as well. So we're going to stop pointing the fingers, and we're going to get out and make things happen.
All right.
And one of the things that, look, the reality is, look, the officer who shot and killed Botham Jean is in prison. Derek Chauvin is in prison. But the reality is, then you have those officers who we know did wrong, who killed your brother, who's trained now, didn't go to jail, but is training other officers, the officers who killed Amir Locke. I mean, and so that's also part of the frustration, because folks want to see justice, and unfortunately, we're still dealing with a system that still gives police officers so much of the benefit of the doubt.
I'd like to respond to that. You know, there's so many different case laws that people of color that we don't know about in our communities until something happens to one of our loved ones. And the case Graham versus Connor was helping to protect police officers, to give them a shield to kill and to get away with it. So we should find a way that we can get back to the Supreme Court, and we can find a way to change the language of Graham versus Connor, where it protects the officers as well as the civilians. So this way they won't only look at it through the eyes of the officers, but they can also look at it through the eyes of the victim. In our son's case, who was sleeping. So
I would just say this to what Andre Locke said. Graham v. Connor and Gardner v. Tennessee, which Attorney Bolden and Attorney Presley know all too well, Roland. It was the Supreme Court creating law, judicial law of qualified immunity. And then it was ratified by the Congress. And it has been the law of the land. It's the reason why Jacob Blake killers were not charged, the reason why they can't bring a civil suit. This qualified immunity is probably the worst law I can think of, because what it encourages police officers to do is not be prudent, to be unreasonable, and it doesn't matter. We got a law that'll protect you. And so that's why we still have work yet to do until Congress, Phalonis and y'all, will finally pass this Justice and Policing Act to say qualified immunity is not good for anybody. They will keep getting away with murder.
No, just whatever you want to say.
No, I definitely echo what everyone here is saying. It is definitely a bittersweet moment for me. I look at it as it's a step in the right direction for the president signing the executive order, but it's just a start. We still have a long way to go. Like everyone said, we still need the Justice and Policing Act passed, because that's the only way African Americans can feel a bit safe in America. Right now, we're not safe. Right now, I feel like they're hunting us, and we need the laws to be on our side.
When I talked to Senator Cory Booker, talked to Senator Coons at the White House, what I said to both of them is, look, the election is in November. I said, there's nothing that precludes the Senate from taking this up again and trying to actually pass it. One of the things that I said in December when Senator Tim Scott went on Face the Nation, and I just want y'all to understand it. Senator Tim Scott went on Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan, and he blamed Democrats for, in his mind, trying to defund the police by tying changes in law to them receiving funding. And I found that to be real interesting, because when Michael Harriot was at the Root, he actually wrote a piece the previous year in 2020 where Senator Tim Scott literally had the exact same mechanism in his law. And he wrote a piece that was called "In Loving Memory of Tim Scott." Now, back in this was actually September, it wasn't December. So Senator Tim Scott was very vocal with me, texting back and forth with regards to it falling apart. Yet when I sent him that story, and I asked him point blank, I said, if Dems want to defund the cops by cutting funds, please explain why you previously wanted to do the same. How can you say it's a bridge too far when what you now say is bad is what your own Deputy Chief of Staff says was needed? Here's what Michael Harriot published today. And I asked him that question on September 30th, on October 27th, on January 19th. The very same thing. I even said, Senator Scott, it's been 2.5 months since I asked you to explain the difference between what you accused Dems of doing on the Floyd bill and what you proposed last year. Why have you and your staff gone silent on your own proposal? What's the difference? Still no response. I think what the president should do, the president should ask all of you to come back to the White House, invite those Republicans, and say, sit across the table and let's put this bill back on track. Your thoughts?
If I could just jump in, and I agree with you, because we met with Senator Scott and we met with Senator Graham, and we sat across the table from them, and, you know, they misled us. You know, they told us that we're going to get something done. And when it fell apart, we got a call from Senator Booker, you know, to express his disappointment, but we didn't get a call from Senator Scott. We didn't. I mean, I called the office and, you know, they told me, oh, he's busy right now. I said, I don't care if he's busy. He made promises to us, and he did not keep those promises. And so he's doing what's politically expedient. And he said, hey, it's just dead, it's just dead. And what we expressed to him, Alyssa and I, we told him our brothers are dead. That's what's dead, and we are tired of you playing politics with our you know, with our loved ones. We are tired of you negotiating if we live or die. And so we haven't heard from him either since that meeting and since it died. And so it's really disingenuous, it's disappointing, and it's unfortunate. But again, I think you're right. We need to get back to the table and figure out how we make this work before the midterms.
I agree. I was going to actually say, you know, the same thing that Tiffany just said. One of the things that I like to really touch in on is that one has nightmares, you know, and for us to come to the White House and always get a Band-Aid, you know, that's unfortunate for us because we go right back and we're going through the same things over and over again. And at this moment, we're just asking for closure. And one step ahead will be passing the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Right.
I just really think, again, if the White House doesn't demand it, I just personally think that that's something that the families should say to this president. Call that meeting at the White House. Ask them to come to the White House and then see if they actually show up. You got people, Senator Scott's running for re-election. You got other people running for re-election. And you're right, he made all those promises. And the Republicans kept saying, and I heard Senator Lindsey Graham say, we are going to get this done. And they didn't.
We don't want to worry about Bill. We want you to look at everything that we're asking you to do because it's protecting our children, our children's children. This is our future. And so we're just fed up and we're just asking for some type of closure.
And I will say I was able to speak with the brother of Walter Scott, Anthony Scott, who was very disappointed out of South Carolina with Senator Scott, who, you know, said that he was going to get this done. And so, you know, we do need to, you know, hold him accountable for his lack of action and his lack of disrespect to the families. He could have at least had the common courtesy to say, hey, this is where we are and this is why. But you went and you lied and said that it was the Dems' fault and that the Dems can't have everything they want. Again, this is not about politics. Right. This is about if we live or die. And so...
So that fell apart in September, and none of you heard from Senator Tim Scott or Senator Lindsey Graham or the Republicans.
No, and that same weekend I ran into Senator Manchin and, you know, tied him down and I said, hey, what do you think about this? He told me he would go and meet with them and that he believed that this should happen and hadn't heard from him either.
Same thing. He wanted to talk about socks and what kind of socks he had on and things like that when he should have been talking about the laws and changing the things that's going on. I was on your show a while back, and we was talking about the George Floyd Policing Act, how it needed to be passed. We're still talking about it 2 years later, and we still haven't gotten it passed. It was Lindsey Graham and Timothy Eugene Scott. They sat there, they said, hey, we're going to get this done. Everybody was in there, Ms. Carr, Ms. Crutcher, Ms. Alyssa, everybody representing their families. And we're still here today fighting for these same rights all over again. Same thing. It never stopped. We're still here doing the same thing, and we're speaking to Roland about the same issues every time we come down here.
I ran to a white couple from Texas a little bit earlier, and we were talking about, and they asked me the question, do I think a lot has changed since the death of George Floyd? Then they asked me, what do you think people should be doing? And in every single case, all of you dealt with, there were people who were protesting, there were people who were out there, people, and of course, when George Floyd was killed, people all over the world. And the thing that I said to that white couple, what I said to them was, I said, part of the problem is all of those people who were out there went back home. Yeah. That protesting in the aftermath of his death, and the death of Terrence, and the death of Amir, and the death of both of John, and the death of John Crawford III, and the death of Michael Brown, and the death of, I mean, I've had to interview the death of Sandra Bland. I mean, I can go on and on and on. Folk went back home. We also need all of those people, all the people who are black, people who are not black, to be putting pressure here.
That's right.
Imagine if all of a sudden they looked up and 10 or 20,000 descended upon Capitol Hill when they were here saying we're going to go to all 435 House offices, all 100 Senate offices. And so part of this is also getting the public to understand that they have to stay engaged, because if you study the Black Freedom Movement, so-called Civil Rights Movement, that thing wasn't just the protest in Birmingham or in Selma. It was a constant state of pressure.
That's right.
That's the thing. We go home and we get comfortable, and we forget until there's another victim. And we shouldn't have to wait for another victim for us to remember that we need to act. If we did something before, if we applied all the pressure, like everyone that came out to protest for George Floyd, if everyone applied pressure to their senators, to their government, maybe Amir Locke would still be alive right now. So it's on all of us. But I personally think Tim Scott needs to be held accountable, because I've had several meetings with Tim Scott from when President Trump was in office. I met with him, we spoke over the phone, several meetings, and still nothing. So he has a lot of explaining to do. He needs to come to the table and speak to all these families who are still grieving for their loved ones.
Go ahead. While y'all talking, I'm seeing the text.
Accountability. Accountability. Why is there such a lack of accountability all around the country? With police, with the politicians. No one wants to be accountable for their own actions. All we're just saying is, be accountable, admit that you were wrong, and change it. Because if it happens to their children, the laws will change immediately. Immediately. The same way with drugs. When crack cocaine hit the inner cities, it was okay. But when it hit the suburbs, it was such a windfall. Everybody went crazy. Then it was the war on drugs all of a sudden. So it shouldn't have to happen that way. We shouldn't have to humanize our children or our brothers or our family members.
Yeah, and I just want to say that the president said, I just want to quote that public trust is the foundation of public safety. And that's what we have to remember. You know, it's not us against them. You know, they need the public, you know, to be engaged in this process. But I want to say I'm inspired by seeing all of these families who came in spite of their pain, in spite of their trauma, who came together. And we're just simply a small representation of so many people who are out there whose names we'll never know, as Attorney Crump says. We'll never know. And so we're speaking out for you. If you're listening, this moment was for you today. And know that you're not alone. And we're going to keep fighting regardless. And I remember the last words of my brother that he spoke to me. God is going to get the glory out of my life. And I believe that this moment today, this historic moment, is living proof. And so I just want to say I love you all, and we're going to keep doing this, and we're going to keep fighting together.
The last thing, what do y'all have to say to all of these corporations that made pronouncements in the wake of the death of your loved ones, but especially since George Floyd, to the tune of $30 to $50 billion. Folks made all kind of announcements that we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and very little has been done. What do you have to say to those CEOs and those boards of directors, including black folks who work at a lot of these companies, where they have not done anything except sending those press releases out?
As a Mayor Locke's mother, I want to say to not only those companies, but to the politicians across the board, if you are not coming down into our communities and willing to dig your hands down in the soil and get your hands dirty, we're not voting for you. We're going to be done with voting for the lesser of two evils. Just because you look like me don't mean that you're for me. So at the end of the day, we're done. We're not begging. We're not asking. We are telling you, as a police officer, you chose to become a police officer. It is an occupation. You are not God. You are not above the law. You do not have the right to take anybody's life just because you feel intimate danger. Obviously, all of the families here, our loved ones felt intimate danger as soon as they saw you approach them with your weapon. I'm disappointed. I don't believe anything. You can say anything, you can write down anything, but until you show me and back it up with your actions, I'm just going to sit around, but I'm not going to be quiet.
And these corporate organizations, they have a responsibility. Once you know, you owe. It's not enough to just know and be knowledgeable and aware, but once you know, you owe, and you have to act. You know, and all the money that you promised, we need that money shifting to the ground and to these family foundations and organizations who's doing the work every single day. If you care about public safety and community safety, we need an injection of money on the ground so we can find alternatives to policing, so we can find, invest in mental health resources and all of the social services that our community has been lacking because, you know, resources have been stifled by these legislatures into their pet projects. But if you care about public safety, shift the capital to the ground and do what you say you're going to do. That's what a commitment is. That's what a commitment to racial equity is, acting and not just knowing.
Especially all those companies that promised economic revitalization.
That's right.
Of Black Wall Street and Tulsa a year
that's
ago.
Another story.
Final comments, go ahead.
All these companies that all here made all these pledges, I want y'all to know that they can't continue to make laws for the elite and the chosen. They have to make it for the people. And if you all want to express interest in us, please help us. Help us get out and change these laws. I'm right here with my institution, the Philonis and Keita Floyd Institution for Social Change. I'm turning my pain into purpose.
Right.
And I'm with all these other families here. We all going through the same thing. We wake up every day and we miss our loved one. Yes. We know we can't get them back. And we searching for accountability because justice is getting our loved one back. And we know we can't get that. It's always an empty chair at the table. So all you people who stood up and said Black Lives Matter, show it to me.
That's right.
That's the only way to prove it. Show it to me.
And I see with your shirt that's a lion because he's a graduate of Jack Yates High School, Jack Yates Lions. I'm a graduate as well. Yeah, I peeped that. Don't trust me. I saw it.
Jack Yates, man.
That's right.
The yard.
That's right.
To the corporations, shame on you. Shame on you. The time is now for change, and you have an opportunity to make a difference. You actually have an opportunity to make a difference, and we look forward to that happening. We're not asking you to. When I say that we look forward to it happening, is because it's already taking place. Things are already happening behind closed doors. There's a reason that we're all here. There's a reason that we were all called here. It wasn't a mistake that we ended up being on Roland Martin show. So everything is supposed to be the way that it is. We truly appreciate it, and things will change.
Well, do understand, I've interviewed way too many family members, and one of the reasons why I launched this show, I launched the Black Star Network, is because I did not want to have to depend upon mainstream media to cover our story. So do understand that we will continue to do that. We'll continue to be on the ground. We'll continue to remember and hold politicians accountable to do what they say they were going to do. And trust me, the corporations that have made these promises, we also going to be calling out each one of them as well and holding them accountable. Because that's what we're supposed to do. Dr. King specifically called on black media to maintain a sense of militancy and not fall for the conservative, and that's really what we do. And so we appreciate y'all joining us, talking with us. Good to see all of you, and we're gonna keep giving them hell.
Yes.
I appreciate
Thank you
it.
so
Thanks
much for having us.
Folks, thank you very much, folks. We're going to go to a break. We come back. We'll talk to our legal panel. Also, some breaking news out of Texas. Thankfully, police have thwarted another high school student in Richardson, Texas, who was found with the AR-15 and the AK-47 from shooting up that school. They stopped him before that actually happened. We'll give you more of those details when we come back on Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from Black Lives Matter Plaza on the second anniversary of the death of George Floyd, right here on the Black Star Network.
Next on A Balanced Life, we're talking everything from prayer to exercise to positive affirmations and everything that's needed to keep you strong and along your way. That's on a next A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, on Black Star Network.
You to the launch of the Mass Poor People's Low Wage Assembly and Moral March on Washington, D.C., June 18, 2022.
We are a new, unsettling force, and we are powerful. New, unsettling force, and we're here.
We're rising up to demonstrate the compelling power that we, poor and low-income people, have to reconstruct society from the bottom up.
And we need to do it with the loudest voices possible, the biggest actions possible.
Because we know that there is no scarcity in this land. The only scarcity is the moral will to do what's right.
Hold on, just a little while longer.
We are those with sub-minimum wage jobs who can't afford sky-high rent.
People with disabilities are the fastest growing minority group.
It's crazy to me that in 2021, it's still legal for workplaces to pay a sub-minimum wage to people with disabilities.
There are still so much trial and tribulations that we go through as Indigenous people. We can't get a decent wage to sustain ourselves, nor can we get adequate housing.
Veterans across this nation say enough is enough. We can't pat essential workers on the back on one day and then cut their health care the next day.
Health is a political choice.
What more do I need to do to prove that my voice is just as valuable as anyone else's?
There are still forces in denial that would try to slow walk our transition to a clean economy and a just future for us all.
We have an immoral system run by immoral people.
But together we walk, and we walk and we fight.
It's time for a change. Reconstruyamos esta gran nación.
See, we are people of resilience as we fight these interlocking injustices together.
When we work together, mobilize together, and rise together, we become a voice for the voiceless, and we become an agent of change in a time where great change is needed.
We need the third Reconstruction to ensure that deaf people, people with disabilities, and all people can have the right to live and to thrive.
We know what they are doing, but the question is, what are we going to do? Reconstruction begins when we change our mentality and say it's time for you to get your foot off of my neck.
Justice is
This is Cheryl Lee Ralph.
Hello, everyone. It's Kiara Sheard.
Hey, I'm Taj.
I'm Coco.
And I'm Lily. And we're SWV.
What's up, y'all? It's Ryan Destiny, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Folks, we're live here on Black Lives Matter Plaza in Washington, D.C. It is the second anniversary of the death of George Floyd. We continue our coverage here. Joining us now, our legal panel. We always have lawyers every Wednesday on the show. To my left, Damien Hewitt. He runs the Laws Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. It will hurt Scott Bowden's feelings significantly to know that you are an alpha. Well, of course. Yeah, of course. That's how we roll. Yeah. Monique Presley. Hold up, Monique. You got 5 different new titles. So they sent me. I don't have them right here. So go ahead. Give all your titles since I don't have a teleprompter here. So go ahead.
Wow. I'm a legal analyst, but I am also host of Make It Make Sense with Monique Presley, daily digital show. IG Live noon daily.
See, too much damn content right there. All right, we got Scott Bowden down there.
I have my resume. I just want to read it.
Kappa, lawyer in D.C.
Extraordinaire.
Right, so let's get right to it. Y'all lawyers, y'all see this stuff. Give me your perspective, your real, honest perspective with regard to the executive order signed today by President Biden. David, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Roland. Today's executive order is a step, and it's only a step. It's a step in the right direction because I think politically what it does is it creates the potential for a new floor, not a ceiling, but a new floor, that every effort at reform, transformation, culture shift must at least hit the marks to today. At the same time, let's make no mistake, on 2 fronts. Number one, this executive order is not going to change people's lives immediately. It wouldn't stop some of the officers at the local and state level who have taken lives, who have hurt people, who have accosted them every day. Most of the provisions apply to federal law enforcement. But the other thing we have to be clear about, Roland, is that the legislative effort, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act that we all fought for, many of us fought for, was outright sabotaged in the U.S. Senate after it passed the House. And we know exactly who did it.
Absolutely, and that was Republicans in the Senate, Senator Tim Scott, Senator Lindsey Graham. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. Monique, your assessment of the executive order.
So my assessment before attending the event at the White House was different than he's telling me to do something with my mic.
You lower the microphone, it's covering your mouth. On television, you put it below your chin so they can't. There you go. That's how you do
the man told me to be loud because of the traffic.
Yeah, I got it. But we have damn good microphones. They hear you. Don't worry about it.
The man told me that. Okay, so my assessment was different. I was there in the room, and when Vice President Kamala Harris addressed this issue, I thought that she was not just on message, but on point on tone, on point on the priorities, on point on the necessity that this be a starting point, not a finish, and on point in putting the blame squarely where it belongs, which is in the Senate. She pointed out the fact that legislation was written when she was a senator, by she and by Senator Booker, and that it became the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, and that the House passed it with the leadership in large part of the Congressional Black Caucus. And then it languished in the Senate where it died, that they are the ones who did not do what was necessary. She said that they delinquished, they stepped away from, they failed on their moral responsibility. So now the executive branch is doing what it can. So it's good for federal law enforcement agencies. We see things that change. We see a ban on chokeholds. We see a requirement for body cameras. We see the beginning of a database. We see other things in terms of the change of language for use of force. I sat during the whole ceremony next to Kristen Clark, Assistant AG Kristen Clark, who's the head of the Civil Rights Division. And she was encouraged about what we can do. I'm not bickering with co-counsel who's on here who just spoke, but I do think it does change some things today, where it refers to the DEA, where it refers to the FBI, where it refers to narcotics investigations. That's going to change today about when they can do a no-knock warrant, when they can use excessive force. So I think Roland's looking at me because I'm going long. So those are my thoughts, and I'm now going to pass it to my able colleague and partner in justice, Scott Bolden.
Is there time for me to comment? Is there time for me to comment?
I felt like an evil eye kind of.
I did too, but it was coming from this side. Roland, let me just say this. Couple points, right? One, it's persuasive but not dispositive, but it's a good first step, as my colleagues have said. It's a huge step in the District of Columbia, though, because there are more federal police officers here than anywhere else, along with our local police officers, and very often they are accused of bad acts. So it's huge for the District of Columbia. But if we want real change, let's be real clear, right? There's a midterm election in September or November, if you will, right? We have to take the Senate back, right? We have to build on what we've done in the House. We can't lose seats. It looks like we're going to lose some seats in both houses, but black people, the base of the Democratic Party, can make a difference. This is the time now to make that difference. Whether you're going to the polls over the Roe v. Wade being overturned, the possibility, or you're going because of George Floyd, whatever reason, or you're going because people died for you to have the right to vote, this is the time to get this done. And it's the only way it's going to get done. And so we need to make sure that our get-out-the-vote efforts in Georgia and elsewhere are connected to the George Floyd Police Act, because we can get it done in the next Congress.
Roland, I think Scott is a convert.
Yeah, because, go ahead.
He was singing a completely different tune 3 weeks ago.
I said we need to do it.
He said all is lost.
I didn't say we weren't going to do it.
He said it wasn't going to happen. We got into one of our most hated exchanges behind that.
The Dems are a long way from the midterm, from winning the midterms. I'm encouraging people to vote because it's tied directly to the legislation, the Voting Rights Act, as well as George Floyd Policing Act. It's tied to that success. I've been very consistent about that, as opposed to you and Roland telling me about what Tim Scott and the South Carolina senator were going to do, as you sat next to them and you looked them in the eye and you believed them. At least that was about 6 months ago, a year ago. I never believed him. That's what you're referring to.
You are exactly right about that. I'm going to own it, because I never believed Tim Scott because he never said anything believable. But what I did accept as true at that point was that they were actually trying to do some work, and Senator Tim Scott turned out to be a fraud and a liar.
The greatest
and
hypocrite.
I will never.
In the Senate.
I will never. No. I said to Attorney Crump and anybody else who would listen, if being on the team involves sitting and meeting with that man, count me out, because there is no credibility to his name. He is a discredit to our people. I expect nothing from him by way of anything that would keep our children safe, that would keep women's bodies safe, that would keep, go ahead and tell me you grew up poor. Well, apparently you don't remember it that well. You talk about it, but it doesn't touch you anymore, because he had an opportunity to do something and to push legislation. And I believe Lindsey Graham, when Lindsey Graham said, sitting next to me, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen with Tim Scott right there.
Right, and that might have been that might have been misdirection. But here's the thing:
it wasn't misdirection. He had that power.
I realized that we all got played to an extent, because the voice in the back of my head was believe it when Mitch McConnell says he's going to allow it to happen. And what we understand now is that all along the plan was we're going to run on high crime. We don't want to see reform, let alone transformation. We want to run on them talking about defunding the police. We want to run on that stuff. So there was, in hindsight, this is not letting Tim Scott or anyone else off the hook. In hindsight, the politics were being played at a level lower than they probably could have or should have been, because the politics were even higher than Tim Scott. That's not letting them off the hook.
I don't even know that I agree with that, because when we were in the office for the very last meeting last year, Senator Scott said that one of the hurdles that they had to get over was the disgruntled police chiefs. And then he cycled that lie. He cycled it and said it wasn't true then. Yeah. But they were trying to build up their story, right? And then when he cycled it out and said that the police chiefs were worried because their men were not and women were not going to be doing their jobs, the Police Chiefs Association had to step out and say, no, we are willing to come to the table.
And the FOP too.
Still at the table. And you know who was at the signing today? The police chiefs.
That's
union
right, exactly.
And the FOP.
Major
you know who
Chiefs,
wasn't
FOP.
there? Tim Scott.
There you go. There you
but
go.
where do we go from here? It's the midterms now. We've been marching in the streets. Black voters matter. Every organization out there. Now it's time to vote. Has the marching in the street, in your opinion, Roland, helped or hurt our cause in regard to George Floyd? And do we, if whatever the answer, do we keep it up? But we got to keep going and march to the polls.
Look, the marches and the protests certainly made a huge difference. That is without a doubt. But again, I'm always talking about how you connect the dots. And that is, we know for a fact that not only you didn't get any Republican votes, you also have 2 Democratic senators who refused to break the filibuster. And that's Senator Kristen Sinema of Arizona and Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia. They're not even going to break the filibuster on dealing with guns after now, and in fact, we have now 2 more children have died in Uvalde, Texas, which means. And I'm dealing with a bunch of black people who keep listening to people post stupid tweets such as, oh, the Asians got a bill. It's a lie. What they don't understand is this here. You can sit here and call Joe Biden all you want to. You can call him all kind of names you want to. I'm going back and forth on Eddie Griffin's Instagram page. He talking about how Trump made us upset, but Biden is a demon. Here is what I know is for a fact. If a Republican senator, if Senator Ron Johnson gets reelected in Wisconsin, if a Republican wins the Senate seat in Pennsylvania, if a Republican wins the Senate seat in North Carolina, if Marco Rubio retains his seat in Florida, if Republicans defeat the Democratic incumbent in Nevada, if Herschel Walker beats Senator Raphael Warnock in Georgia, if you see Republicans, if you see Senator Rand Paul retain his seat against Charles Booker in Kentucky, if you see Senator John Kennedy get reelected over Gary Chambers Jr. in Louisiana, I can guarantee you there's no way in hell you're going to see a criminal justice bill. It will never happen. Right. You're not going to see any civil rights legislation. But what I can say, if Democrats turn out and hold the seat in Nevada, hold the seat in Georgia, hold the seat in New Hampshire, and then win in Wisconsin, get Sherry Beasley over the hump in North Carolina, get Fetterman over the hump in Pennsylvania, get that seat in Florida, they potentially could have 54, 55, 56. Right. Now you've negated the 2 votes of Sinema and Manchin.
They won't
and if other Democrats who've been hiding behind Sinema and Manchin now come out and say, I don't want to get rid of the filibuster as well, now you know who you're targeting. And if Democrats then control the Senate, now Sinema's up for re-election in 2024. I don't think she's going to run again. But again, you got to win. And so folks who are watching and listening, if you decide to sit your ass at home, you're going to guarantee there'll be no George Floyd Justice Act.
Well, look, young people,
you're going to guarantee there'll be no gun control.
Young people are wondering, what should I be voting for, right? We're out here at Black Lives Matter Plaza, around the corner from my office at the Lawyers Committee, where just like around the country, hundreds, thousands or more people protest, and they wonder, where's the change that we call for? But I think here's the thing, to your point, brother.
I need those folks
we need them. We need them.
That change don't always happen in a year
exactly.
or 2.
I'm with you. And that's the point I'm going to make now, that, look, if you think about all the elements you need for a movement, we can't litigate our way out of it. We haven't been able to legislate our way out of it. And protest alone is enough. We need all these things clicking just to get the change we got today.
I need you to restate that because, again, there are people who completely miss that whole point. Yeah. You said?
Yeah, we can't legislate our way out of it.
Alone.
We can't alone. We can't litigate our way out of it alone. And we can't protest our way out of it alone. We need all of these elements clicking in concert.
Which is why what I have been saying to all of these millions of people and cities all across this country and across this world who were protesting the aftermath of George Floyd's death, y'all can't stay at home. You got to put the pressure. You got to drop 10, 20,000. Dude, I don't think people understand what the reaction would be. And I'm not saying I don't believe in calling protests on a Saturday when they all going home. I'm saying, what do you think the reaction will be if 10 or 20,000 people showed up when they were in session and said, we go into the offices of all 100 senators, or forget, you know the Democrats who you got. So really, you can say 60. It's about 10 who going to waffle. Say, we going to hit 60 senators, 10,000 people. And then say, we don't see action, we back next month. Then a month after. That's how it happened. Folks are watching. Go read the book on Clarence Mitchell. He was called the lion in the lobby. He was called the 101st U.S. Senator because he was the head of the D.C. Bureau for the NAACP. He was the one who was knocking on all those doors. Right. It ain't going to happen just hoping. Right. It happens. Folk got to put their level of pressure. But if folks sitting there behind at home, you can guarantee you ain't going to see a bill. The Republicans in charge.
You know, I worry about voter disillusionment. And notwithstanding everything you said, black people and brown people voted in record numbers to put Biden and Harris in the White House, to win the Senate and increase in the House, right? They haven't gotten, and I often talk about this, they haven't gotten the result on this very narrow margin, right? What can you tell these voters to get them to fight even harder in the face of defeat?
Go ask your mama and daddy about disillusionment of 12 consecutive years of Republican control in the White House. When Reagan was the president for 8 years and Bush was there for 4 years. It was a whole, and mind you, to all the black people who are watching, understand, Reagan comes in 1980, inauguration 1981. This is after you had black mayors in D.C., in Detroit, in Atlanta, who were driving economic change in those cities. Reagan comes in, conservative Supreme Court, then they begin to cut affirmative action, begin to cut funding as well, starve those cities. And so go ask your mom and dad about disillusionment. I need young people and black people to understand real clear, the shit ain't gonna happen in a year. And I know somebody who's saying, well, Roland, we've been waiting for a very long time. Absolutely, but it don't mean you give up. You got to give folks constant hell.
Have you been fighting for a very long time? That's the question. Have you been fighting for a very long time?
Everybody can fight, right? Everybody may not be able to fight the same way, but when you were talking about the numbers, I mean, we were looking at this past Tuesday's election. We were looking at 400 votes here. You know, we were looking at 1,100 votes there. And one of the things...
Cisneros lost to Cuellar by 177 votes in Texas. Summer Lee beat AIPAC dropped $5 million against her. She won by 500 votes.
So when that happens, what I'm now thinking about, I was having a conversation with Attorney Crump about it, just trying to talk to some lawyers in Tennessee this past week about re-enfranchising citizens who have felony convictions, and all of these laws that are on the book, which should be unconstitutional but are not, about paying your fines. You don't have to be a millionaire or billionaire to decide that you are going to pay off somebody's fines who can't afford it so that they can vote. There are thousands of people who would love to vote, who cannot afford it.
That's what the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition has been doing.
And they can only do as much as they can do, right? And we always go to Robert Smith or Oprah or Tyler. You ain't got to be any of those people. You can be a thousandaire and help somebody who can't afford a $200 fine to make sure that they vote.
Make a donation to those organizations.
I want to bring in Ms. Noor, co-executive director of the Black Visions Minneapolis. She joins us now from Minneapolis. Miski, glad to have you on the show. Talk about what has happened there. George Floyd gets killed. I just had the parents of Amir Locke on here. Nakima Levy Pounds Armstrong, she challenged the mayor and the police chief at the news conference saying, why did you not outlaw and get rid of these no-knock warrants? Had you done that, then Amir Locke would have been alive. Just talk about what we were just talking about, how folk have to stay in the game. They have to understand you can't get disillusioned and depressed, that you got to keep going. That's what y'all have been doing in Minneapolis.
Yes, thanks for bringing me in. Thanks for having me and talking about that. I think that's absolutely right? I think folks have to understand that for movements to actually be successful, for us to win the future, the vision that we see for our people to actually be safe, people have to stay paying attention beyond the flashpoints of movement. People have to stay involved locally on their block, in their neighborhood associations, with their neighbors at George Floyd Square, with the organizations that are on the ground that are attempting to make a change for them, beyond the moments when the general public or the media is even paying attention. And that's what we really have seen possible here in Minneapolis. And the example I'll give you is like right now, even the changes that are happening inside of our system is because of the work that was started years ago, right? In 2018, we won our first campaign to get $1.1 million out of the Minneapolis Police Department and get that actually moved over to the Office of Violence Prevention and get that created. In 2020, we won more funding for the Office of Violence Prevention. And right now, the Mental Health Responder Program has been able to divert over 2,000 calls from the police to folks who could actually provide that kind of care for our communities. And so that is what is possible when people stay in it year after year after year.
Miss, I'm going to let you answer this question because I'm probably going to cuss if I answer it. Somebody in our YouTube chat says, my issue is we vote and put these people in office and they focus on everyone else but us. They pass bills for everyone else but us. They give money to everyone else but us. I'm constantly having to remind people that elections are the end of one process and the beginning of another. There in Minneapolis, y'all didn't just vote. Y'all kept going to the council meetings, the school board meetings. Y'all kept going to the committee meetings. And I think that's part of the thing that for a lot of people, they think voting, okay, I voted, I'm good. Cory Bush is there. Ayanna Presley's there. AOC is there. Rashida Tlaib is there. Joyce Beatty is there. They're all there. No, you got to stay in it. You got to put that pressure on them.
That's right. Thank you for that. Yeah. You know, as much as we want to think that our elected officials are the end all be all, they're really not. The power to create change is actually inside of the people. What has created change here in Minneapolis, what has created change anywhere has been the community coming together and asserting what it is that we want for ourselves. And so that is the work that is important. That is why we organize around our city budget every year. It is why we do trainings and support people to be able to testify. It's why we recruit folks to testify from their own experience around what is happening around safety and what they actually want to see. Last year, we actually ran a People's Movement Assembly process where we talked to hundreds of folks in Minneapolis asking them, what does safety mean to you? What does it mean to feel safe on your block? What does that mean for what the city council has to do and move from here, right? And so we're actually creating a people's agenda, people's budget from that we're actually able to hold our city council accountable to, because at the end of the day, we know that it is the people that are actually able to create change and that we have to hold our elected officials' feet to the fire. You know, when we saw our city council commit to defunding the police, it is because thousands and thousands of us were out in the streets demanding it and calling for it. And so elected officials are not the vanguard. They are actually there to be held accountable to what it is that we want. And so we have to keep coming together and demanding what it is that we want and making that known. That is why George Floyd Square even still exists to this day.
Danny, you want to jump in? Go ahead.
So this is the system from Minneapolis. This is the kind of smart, strategic fighting that we need. Because remember, policing is not a national issue in terms of where the harm is felt. It's a hyper-local dynamic and problem with 18,000 law enforcement units throughout the country. And so the fight can't just be with our gaze on the White House or our gaze on Congress only, or our gaze on Black Lives Matter Plaza only. There's a Black Lives Matter Plaza, there's a family in mourning, there's leadership, and there's power and activism in every community in this country if we harness it and if we leverage it, and if we work together in concert. So I commend what they're doing in Minneapolis. They've been fighting for a long time, and they're sustaining that fight with new leadership, and I love to see it.
But what's amazing about that dynamic that you just talked about is that it's a very local issue, but it's happening in thousands of police departments that rises to a national crisis in regard to police violence against people of color and their lack of training and who and why and how they're hired, right? Like, who are you hiring to give a gun and a badge to? Are they susceptible to being more racist? Are they susceptible to escalating versus de-escalating? They're tests to be able to show that in an individual. besides what their reaction time is. How fast or how hard or how accurate they can shoot a gun.
Yeah, that's the only training that happens some places. Yeah, that's right.
Right, but that's where what the president and vice president did today comes in again, and that's where, to your point, voting comes in again.
Yeah.
Because they are now about to, through this executive order, require the anti-racism bias training, the testing for federal LEAs, for federal law enforcement agencies, right? But it can be a gold standard. It can be a model for the way that it's done on the state level and on the local level. But we've got to vote in people on the state and local level who believe it, who care about it, who are going to push it. So it's the best we can do. It's the best we can do without legislation.
You can't ask them, are you a racist?
Of course.
99% of the people will tell you, I'm not a racist. Are you prejudiced?
Right.
No, I'm not prejudiced. But culturally, because I don't have that racism gene, I've been taught in my environment, even in my home, to be that way.
Hold on, David.
Yet I deny it.
Miski wants to jump in. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yes, I was going to say thank you for that point, and I really want to say what we also elections and voting is that way to, as an opportunity to actually identify people so that we can continue to talk to them, right? So we ran a ballot initiative to get a Department of Safety here in Minneapolis, and while the ballot measure did not pass, 62,000 people voted yes on it. 62,000 people here in Minneapolis voted for a new vision. That's where people then voted for our mayor. And so now it is our responsibility to go talk to those 62,000 and about what safety looks like to them and continue to engage them so that they stay involved in movement. Because what we do know is that executive orders, federal investigations, failed reforms, consent decrees, and oversight means have been completely inadequate to keep Black people safe. And so we need to actually do the work to educate our people on the fact that more is possible. Safety for Black people is possible. It is not possible inside the current system of policing, and we know that safety exists beyond that. And so we have to continue to use voting, use elections to identify our people so that we can continue to push their imaginations beyond what currently exists in our world into a world and imagine a world in which Black people truly can be safe.
All right, Miski Noir, we appreciate you joining us on the second anniversary of the death of George Floyd. Certainly keep up the good work there in Minneapolis. And the last 2 years we've been here in D.C., so maybe we'll do next year there from Minneapolis.
Come on through. George Floyd Square is great. We're going to be having events all weekend that are held down by the George Floyd Global Memorial Foundation. I'm actually about to head over there for the candlelight vigil that's going to start in about an hour or so. So thank you so much for including me, and y'all have a great day. Thank you for thinking of Minneapolis.
We appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Folks, we're going to go to a break. We're going to talk about Uvalde. 2 more young folks have died. We'll also talk with a school leader here in D.C. About, again, what students, what teachers, what parents are saying in the wake of this last shooting. And we'll also give you the breaking news where police have thwarted a second shooting in Richardson, Texas. We'll give you those details when we come back. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here, broadcasting live from Black Lives Matter Plaza in the nation's capital on the second anniversary of the death of George Floyd on the Black Star Network. Back in a moment.
He brought his own sound. So when you have an artist that creates his own sound, like Earth, Wind & Fire, Stevie, they come in, the Beatles, they create their own sound. He kept reinventing himself. He wasn't afraid to change instrumentations or not use drums or not use bass or use the Lynn machine or use real drums or use, pots and pans. It didn't matter. It's just like he wasn't afraid to. The sound was different every time he did an album, completely different, And the things that he wrote about, it was things that he felt he needed to speak about. So a lot of honesty, whether he would admit to it or not, there was a lot of honesty and a lot of things that were real to him. When he gave, you know. I think for me, he is my favorite, my #1 favorite guitar player in the world. He was. He played with, I mean, and especially I loved times me playing drums with him, he and I playing together. When I played drums, it was a whole nother thing. And I just think that he reached people in a way as an artist that he reached you because he was, again, honest in a way that he said it a million times, but he wasn't trying to write the next Purple Rain. That was already what it was.
Right.
I can write that. That was that one time,
right.
But it's never going to happen again. So why would I write that again? Then it's not special anymore.
Hey, I'm Antonique Smith.
What up, Lana Well, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Folks, the fallout continues in Texas after the tragic shooting at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas, located about 80 miles from San Antonio. 19 children were killed, 2 teachers at that elementary school. Today, there was a news conference where Texas Governor Greg Abbott said that the killer warned people on social media minutes before the attack that he was going to shoot up the school. We also know that the 18-year-old killer, Salvador Ramos, who used an AR-15 at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, he previously shot his grandmother, took his grandmother's car, drove to the school, got into an accident. Law enforcement engaged with him because he was wearing body armor. They were not able to take him down, and then he was able to go into the school and actually shoot up a particular classroom. Now, many of these elected officials, mostly Republican, held a news conference today there in Uvalde, but former Congressman Beto O'Rourke, who was running for governor of Texas, challenged those leaders when it came to their inaction on gun control. Watch what happened.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Sit down. You're out of line and an embarrassment. Hey, sit down and don't play this stuff.
Next shooting is right now, and you are doing nothing.
No, he needs to get his ass out of here. This isn't the place to talk this over.
This is totally predictable. When you,
sir, you're out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Please leave this auditorium. I can't believe you're a sick son of a bitch that would come to a deal like this to make a political issue. It's on assholes like you. Why don't you get out of here?
there are family members. There are family members who are crying as we speak. There are family members whose hearts are broken. There's no words that anybody shouting can come up here and do anything to heal those broken hearts. We all, every Texan, every American has a responsibility where we need to focus not on ourselves and our agendas. We need to focus on the healing and hope that we can provide to those who have suffered unconscionable damage to their lives and loss of life. We need all Texans to, in this one moment in time, put aside personal agendas, think of somebody other than ourselves, think about the people who are hurt, and help those who have been hurt.
It is absolutely wrong. In fact, it is insane. The governor talks about mental health. It is insane that we allow an 18-year-old to go in and buy an AR-15. What the hell did we think he was going to do with that? This one is on us.
And what do you say to Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who says now is not the time to make this political?
Now is the time to stop the next shooting. Right after Santa Fe High School was the time to stop the next shooting. Right after El Paso was the time to stop the next shooting. Right after Midland, Odessa was the time to stop the next shooting. And in each case, we say this isn't the time. Now is the time, like literally right now. That's why I'm here. That's what we want as a state. That's what I want as a parent. I've got 3 kids who are in high school and middle school and elementary school. That's what they want. And I face their judgment and my conscience and ultimately my maker for what I do when I have the chance to change this. And I'm going to do everything in my power to change this. And I am not alone. The majority of Texas is with us on this right now. The majority of Texas is not reflected by that governor or those people around the table who talk about mental health care or say that this is pure evil or that it was absolutely unpredictable. This is predictable. It will happen, and it will continue to happen until we change course. We've got to change.
Well, it's quite interesting to listen to Texas Governor Greg Abbott say, don't think of yourself in this situation, when last night he literally attended a fundraiser in East Texas. Now, when he was asked about it at the news conference, he said, I simply stopped by there to let people know that I couldn't stay, that I had to get back to Austin. You didn't have to stop. You could have called someone and told them that. Then he was asked, is he going to be speaking at the NRA convention, which is in Houston beginning on Friday? He says, my focus is right now, I'm taking this one day at a time. He could have easily said, no, I'm not going to speak at the NRA convention, but he chose not to do so. That's because he is thinking about himself. And so I have no respect for Texas Governor Greg Abbott or his sidekick, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, because they have given lip service. The mass shootings that have happened in Texas, 4 of the largest mass shootings in the last 5 years in America have happened in Texas. A church in Texas, 26 killed. In El Paso, 23 killed, 10 killed in Santa Fe, and now in 2021 killed there in Uvalde, Texas. And so I don't want to hear anything from Abbott, from Patrick, Senator John Cornyn, or Senator Ted Cruz when they have chosen not to support sensible gun control legislation. The impact on so many folks across the country. My high school, they posted a notice yesterday saying backpacks or other bags were going to be forbidden. Schools, this is, of course, caused a significant problem all across this country. Schools, principals, teachers, parents nationwide are fearful of what may be next. We got the news moments ago, about 30 minutes ago, in Richardson, Texas. Police announced that they had thwarted a shooter at Bruckner High School in Richardson, Texas. The student was captured with an AK-47 replica and an AR-15 rifle inside of his vehicle. The Richardson Police Department put the statement out saying that took place this morning around 10:55 as well. And so he was seen holding a rifle. Cops were called, and then they were able to stop him. We're joined right now, folks, by Pat Brantley. She is the CEO of Friendship Public Charter Schools here in the nation's capital, and also one of her students, the 9th grader, Anise Fullington. Glad to have both of y'all here. I'll start with, Anise, I'll start with you. Being a student, I saw some tweets yesterday that were so sad. There was one parent who he was talking to his child, and the child said, "Dad, what are you watching?" And he told him, he said, "Oh, it's okay. We've been trained for that." That child was in elementary school and is talking about training for mass shootings as if they're somehow in the military or the armed forces. Your thoughts on, again, what happened there and just what students have been talking about and saying?
In my opinion, what's happening in Buffalo and all throughout Texas is a huge problem. Nobody should be able to go to school and not be able to come home to see their parents. Nobody should have to sit there and be trained for mass shootings, because in the school you're supposed to be safe. You're supposed to go there to get your education and do what you want to do for the rest of your life. You're supposed to experience things that you can't experience outside of school most of the time. So I feel as though that people sitting over here making it seem like it was nothing bad, and then for the shooting that happened in Buffalo, for him to only get 1 count, that's a huge problem, because too many people got hurt in that. Too many people went there to go get groceries for their house to eat and make sure that they were okay, to not know that they weren't gonna come home and be able to use that food, or to be able to at least make it to that line to pay for that food. They should not have to be scared to go to a grocery store now. And being a teenager myself and going to school, nobody wants to experience that. I wouldn't want to experience that myself. I wouldn't want to feel like my life is in danger being in school. I wouldn't want to feel like at any point in time somebody could come in my school and start shooting and they would have no problem with it. They would be perfectly fine at the end of the day. But families would be going through it. Families would be feeling all the pain, all the grief, everything that comes along with losing a loved one, especially your child.
Pat, I have 3 siblings who were our teachers, my niece, countless aunts and uncles and cousins who are educators. We now know that those 2 teachers literally threw their bodies over students, shielding them. One of the students that survived said that his life was saved because she put her body over that. And then you have these people who are saying, oh, let's arm teachers, let's train them. I'm sorry, a teacher is not trying to sit. You're trying to educate children. You're not sitting here thinking about walking around a classroom with a gun on your holster as if you were somehow quasi-law enforcement. As a CEO of multiple schools, what was your reaction to what happened, and how did you have to brace your education community?
My reaction is the country's reaction. It's grief, it's anger, it's fear. Let's just think about this. People talk about test scores and education, etc. You know what my most basic responsibility is? The kids you sent us in the morning are coming home to you in the afternoon. And that teachers don't have to put their bodies in the line of fire. All these people who will say, we respect our teachers, we love our teachers, we are here for our teachers, and putting out legislation for what kids could do, what teachers should do. Let's protect the people who are educating our kids. Let's not think that having them carry a gun is the solution. It is not. Our teachers right now are training 3-, 4-, and 5-year-olds to shelter in place. They are figuring out how to lock down their schools and their rooms so that someone won't come in and shoot them. And our next answer, instead of removing the guns that are killing, is that they should arm themselves. That's not the answer. It's not the right thing to do. We need votes, we need legislation, we need mandates, we need moratoriums. But what we don't need is to think that teachers who are educated to uplift kids' minds should carry a weapon into the school, because we, America, won't protect them.
Anise, are you and your fellow students, I mean, are y'all having these conversations? I mean, when these things happen at one of these schools, what is the conversation like among students about when these shootings happen?
Yes, we are having plenty of conversations. When it comes to our school, our teachers are always bringing things outside of our classrooms and outside of our building so that we get the understanding of things, and we all have our different opinions, but we all understand that everybody sees things in a different way. We all understand that when we're talking about the situations that are going on, we automatically know, like, everybody's gonna have things to say. You might not like it, but that doesn't give you the right to disrespect them in any type of way, because these are people's parents and these are people's sisters and brothers who have been hurt. These are little kids who didn't get to experience life as much as they should, and nobody should have to throw their body over no kid to protect them, because they should already be safe. Nobody should be understanding the fact that at any point in time anything could happen. My life could be taken in a split second in school, where I'm supposed to be learning, I'm supposed to be experiencing, but...
Supposed to be safe.
Yeah, you're supposed to be safe, and you can't even be safe. You can't even trust people within your community because you don't know what's going to happen. You can't trust fellow classmates who have also caused mass shootings within schools. You look on TV, you might end up seeing a commercial of school shootings, and that's a lot to take in, especially being a student. And just starting off high school, that takes a lot out of a person. I'm a student. I see this every day.
Pat, one of the things that are being talked about is single entry access to schools. I saw someone posted a notice. This woman was really upset because they had that at her school, and she talked about there was a parent who was standing in front of her desk, and she asked him, how did he get in? Well, some teacher had left the door open. And she had to send a notice around saying, guys, this is precisely why we can't do that. You can't just leave the door open. You can't leave a side door open. And so when these things happen, are you and your staff, are y'all constantly having to review your security protocols, having to remind teachers and others that, look, these things are in place to try to keep these things from happening?
Constantly. When we're supposed to be educating kids, what are we doing? We're sitting around and strategizing. How do we harden a building? We actually talk about this. Is this the right entrance? Do we have metal detectors? What do we do to keep weapons from out of our school and to keep people with bad intent? And what does that mean? That means that we deny our parents and others from coming into a school that should be a safe place because we don't know what's going to happen. These are problems. They're big problems. They're problems for all of us. Single entry, sure. How about glass? How about hardening doors, steel doors at the front of the classroom? Those are the things that we have put into place. Emergency phones in every classroom so that people can notify if there's something that happens, right? Like that is what is happening. And it has become actually a big industry, right? Bet this week that multiple companies will call me about what to do if someone comes into our school with a bad intent. What I need them to do is to vote in the people who will take care of this problem for us. Yeah, you're having to spend money on security when you're trying to spend money on education. Exactly. Glad to have both of you here. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much for joining us on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Folks, when we come back, we're going to talk with our panel about in that news conference. It was amazing. All this talk from Abbott and Patrick about mental illness and mental health services. So why have y'all not been funding that all of these years? That's what leads to these things. We'll discuss that next right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from Black Lives Matter Plaza in the nation's capital on the second anniversary of the death of George Floyd. We are on the Black Star Network. Back in a moment.
America's wealth coach and host of Get Wealthy. Let me ask you a question. Are your financial affairs in order? Or are you like Prince, Aretha Franklin, and Chadwick Boseman, celebrities that passed away with no will? Well, that's the topic we're covering on our next Get Wealthy program. Do you have the proper strategies in place to make sure that your assets and everything that you've worked so hard for pass on to the next generation and you create legacy wealth?
So I encourage people to be thinking about what is the long-term plan as opposed to just for today or just right after I pass away.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Gavin Houston.
Hi, I'm Carl Payne. Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now.
All right, folks, we're here at Black Lives Matter Plaza on the second anniversary of the passing, the death of George Floyd. Let's continue the conversation. We were just talking about Uvalde. And y'all, at that news conference, I mean, the last 24 hours has been unbelievable. At the news conference, Abbott and Dan Patrick are talking about, we need to be doing more about mental health. Now, all of a sudden, Fox News is now focused on mental health and mental illness. And I'm sitting here going, where the hell y'all been? I mean, the reality is, you've got Republicans saying stuff in Congress, but folks didn't want to fund when it came to mental health. And so it's amazing how after the fact, and this is probably my greatest criticism of folk in this country. It's like after something happens, then all of a sudden, let's fix the bridge, let's do this and let's do that. When you want climate change, no, let's just go ahead and wait for the earth just to go ahead and just catch on fire to go, you know what, we might want to go ahead and do something about that. I mean, it is just this, because the automatic thing before something happens is it costs too much. But then after the fact, let's do whatever we have. If you had more preventative, it drives me crazy.
They're doing.
I know what they're doing.
Yeah, they're not trying to fix a bridge. They're not trying to put any rocks in the pothole. They're deflecting. All they're doing right now is saying, listen, anything to keep it away from the guns, anything to hold on to power, anything to not enrage the NRA any further. So now they care about mental health. Now, these are governors that turned down funds from the Affordable Care Act that could have helped mental health. But it's also the fact that this shooter has no documented history of mental health issues. So sometimes what we have to do, and it's hard, especially sometimes in Christian community, even if he was criminally insane, he would still be a criminal, and he wouldn't have been able to do what he did. What is that? He wouldn't have been able to do what he did if Texas hadn't changed the age that was required in order to buy a gun. This 18-year-old could not walk up to a bar and order a beer, but he could purchase AR-15s, and that's why we're really here. I don't care what else they try to turn it into. It's not that.
That's why, to me, this is stupid. Last year, Texas lowered the age to buy a gun. This guy bought a gun on May 17th. On his 18th birthday, then bought another weapon on May 20th.
2 rifles.
I mean, within 3 days. And at the news conference, Abbott goes, well, for 60 years, Texans have been able to buy long barrel weapons. And for 60 years, we haven't had any issue, only until the last few years. We're not sure why it's that mental illness thing. No, could it also be how we can't sue the gun lobby? Like, I mean, when you start, we're going to play a little bit in a second after you comment. What happened on the Hill today, they've been blocking, confirming somebody for the ATF director because how in the hell you super law enforcement, but you don't want an ATF director because they don't want somebody dealing with the guns?
Yeah, it's just complete hypocrisy. And you know what? Let me tell you something, Roland. America is comfortable with the carnage. America is comfortable with these young brown kids being shot down by another young brown kid from mental health who couldn't get access to mental health in Texas. Why do I say that? It pains me to say that. But after so many mass shootings and walking around, I was in California this weekend, and it was just weird, right? I was in a new place. And for some reason, I kept thinking, you know what? this could be a place for a mass shooting. Why am I thinking like that? Because it's become routine. We don't even do tributes anymore when you have mass shootings. We must have had 20 already this year. America's comfortable with it. They're outraged with it. They're disappointed in it. Their families, if they're not affected, we focus and just move on. Something is very, very wrong. We don't want to prevent it, and then we lament it. One last point on the police. I'll transfer this to the police. Why do the police solve crime? If I'm a victim of a crime, why do I care that you solved it? I've been violated already emotionally and practically. Why not put all our money into crime prevention, community policing? If a police presence stops a crime, why isn't that more effective? Most police departments won't do it, or they do that plus, right? The prevention of gun violence, access to guns, as well as police preventing crimes makes all the sense in the world, but America is comfortable with the criminal acts and comfortable with the gun violence. The question is why? Why? How could we get that comfortable in this country with that level of carnage?
Again, just like we get comfortable with all sorts of different things. It is the natural tendency, unfortunately, of this country. Today on Capitol Hill, there was a hearing. And again, folks, it has been 7 years since the Senate has confirmed a permanent director for the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms department, because Republicans won't allow it. Well, Senator Cory Booker was having none of it. This is what happened today.
And I simply want to just, in the little bit of time that I have, though, drill down on a frustration I've had. As Senator Whitehouse talked about, both of us come from the world where we were very focused on local law enforcement. And I remember my first trip down to Washington as a mayor of New Jersey's largest city, talking to one of the leaders of the ATF and being stunned at this candor with me about how much this body, Congress, has handcuffed the ATF to actually just enforce the laws that we have. I was really stunned when he started going through chapter and verse, all the riders that have been put into big legislation, all the things that have been done to their budget, all the outrageous loopholes that prevent the ATF from using modern policing. You are the one agency, I hope you will be the head of the one agency, that Republicans, in effect, are happy to defund. The ATF has not kept up with the other law enforcement federal agencies in funding. If you look at the budget of the ATF, it's been stagnant over the last 10 years. The budgets of other federal law enforcement agencies have increased dramatically in comparison. For example, from 2005 to 2014, the FBI's budget up 62%, Customs and Borders budget 46%, 94%, Customs and Border Protection. It goes on and on and on. And the increase of your budget has barely kept up with inflation. The manpower shortages at the ATF are stunning to me. You and I both know, because we've been in this world, that these straw purchases, which I've heard from some of my colleagues, source a significant amount of the illegal weapons that end up in the hands of people that shouldn't buy these weapons. But the ATF has fewer employees. It had fewer employees in 2017 than it did in 2002 to enforce these laws. The ATF literally has fewer special agents than the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police has sworn officers. They have 760 ATF investigators who are responsible for 130,000 federal firearm licensees. That ATF leader that I first met when I was mayor told me we were asked to do our job with both hands tied behind our backs and our feet in leg irons. And so all of this talk about the legislation that we're proposing, common sense, bipartisan legislation, you rightfully say that's what Congress is all almost obscuring the fact that we have an agency that has the power to protect Americans, and we're not funding it. We're not supporting it, and we have done outrageous things to it, like not allow it to use computers. I'm going to submit this to the record, that we literally have this insanity that when there's a going out of business gun retailer, first of all, there's what's called the fire sale loophole, Mr. Chairman. I know you know this, that they have to do background checks when they sell their gun, but if they're going out of business, they can dump their inventory on people without doing background checks. And then when the ATF tries to keep records of this, they have to keep them all on paper. And it gets so bad at the ATF that every time they get new agencies going, they literally have to put them into shipping containers outside because the floor of the building would buckle. It is so ridiculous what my Republican colleagues have done over the years to undermine law enforcement from protecting communities. And so, sir, I just want you to know, God bless you for stepping up to lead an agency that hasn't had a head for the longest time, that Donald Trump couldn't even get ahead because a very corporate, industrial-driven lobby is dictating policy here more than the good conscience of folks. But I hope when you come for your first oversight hearing, because we're going to get you confirmed, I'm going to work like crazy to make sure that happens. I just hope that you will look Congress in the eye and tell them, like I was told as a young mayor, that you don't have the resources to enforce the laws of the United States of America, that you don't have the personnel to adequately enforce the laws of the United States of America, that you don't have the computer equipment, that there are riders that have been put in that undermine your ability to get the job, that there's technology out there that can make us safer that you're not allowed to use. This is a shameful charade. This is despicable that the same people that try to accuse us wrongfully of defunding the police have taken one of the most important law enforcement agencies to protect Americans, to protect our children, our churches, our mosques, our synagogues, our parks, our supermarkets, is not allowed to do their job. And we yet again are sacrificing our children on the altar of inaction. And it hurts. And you know where I live. I've lost kids I know. I see shrines on streets. And when my law enforcement wants to do the job, as you're right, in partnership with the ATF, there is barrier after barrier put up by Congress. And so, dear God, bless you and your family for leading an agency where you're going to be attacked every single day when you just try to enforce the laws that are on the books. You're going to be vilified and cursed. I see it happening right now, people trying to block your nomination. But I just simply say to you, sir, God bless you, because you're doing righteous work. And I have faith that you will protect citizens. But the shame is not on you or your agency and the proud officers, law enforcement officers who dedicate themselves to our safety. The shame is on this body for what we're not doing to support you. May God bless this country. May we confirm you. And may we somehow end this national nightmare that every day 100 Americans are dying by gun violence.
To sit there and listen to that, we're dealing with a gun crisis in this country. And for Republicans to be all about law enforcement, all about, protecting law enforcement. But the one law enforcement division they don't want to they want to screw with is the ATF. They are still pissed from the Branch Davidian standoff. They're still pissed with that. They do not want the ATF to do their jobs when it comes to guns in this country.
Second Amendment arguments. Somehow they weave that in because ATF is violating the rights of these hardcore gun owners or ranchers and what have you. It's just bizarre. But it sounds like, according to Senator Booker, that the Republicans have their own sense of defunding the police. They have their own sense of defunding the police by legislation. And ATF, which is the enforcement agency, you couple that with access to guns and the killings of kids, it's beyond a gun problem. It's an epidemic of violence. And until it starts to hit people who can vote and pass legislation, at some point, all of us are going to be affected by this gun violence in schools, these mass shootings. We've all been affected by gun violence already, but now the mass shootings. You can only do that so often. Eventually, our families, extended families, are going to be affected by it. And then you've got to really say, where does the blood? Whose hands is the blood on? And it's safe to say the blood of those children, those brown children in Texas and elsewhere, you know, on the hands of the Republicans, and those who had the power to do something chose not to. Mourn our young people who have been victims of mass shootings in our schools. It's just deplorable.
Right, no, and we are all affected right now, Scott. It's not that we're going to be affected. You know, as a parent who still has to send kids to school every day, I remember 10 years ago when I heard about Sandy Hook, I fell to my knees. I was not just mortified, I was stunned. When this happened, I wasn't stunned at all. Still mortified, still pained, but nothing about it surprised me.
Can you imagine, hold on just once, can you imagine, as a black mother, as any mother, sending your kids to school one morning, and at 3, 4, 5, they don't show up, and you turn on the news, and there's been a mass shooting at your school where your kids are. Can you fathom that?
No, what I can't fathom is this is probably the moment where, and look, I've been a journalist since I graduated from college in 1991, and so there's sort of a zone that we go into in covering any of these stories, and it's just you like go into it. And you completely remove emotion, because you're just sort of locked into a reporting zone. But probably last night, the one moment where I couldn't go into that zone was when someone posted that the families were taking DNA swabs.
Yep.
And the moment you heard that, what you knew is that they could not recognize those bodies. That what those weapons did to those young children, that's what you knew.
Those small bodies.
That rocked me there. But again, what drives me crazy, and what I hope happens, I hope these largely white conservatives who because the reality is they keep voting for these Republicans. 84% of Americans want background checks, but they keep voting for them. I hope what happens is that people say on this is it. This is it.
Yeah.
Final comment.
Enough is enough, right? That they finally say enough is enough, and that some consciousness on the part of the Ted Cruzes and the GOP, that someone has some consciousness and can impact beyond prayer, beyond
I don't want to hear their thoughts and
NRA.
prayers. I don't want to hear it.
Right, exactly. Because of the hypocrisy of it all. You got to blame somebody, but the people you blame are the ones that can do something about it. Anything. You should do anything you can do to stop this violence.
And that's what Beto Rourke was saying.
That's right.
They got mad. That's what he was saying.
You got to do anything. You can, the money, access to the guns, that won't help. It will help. Mental health, that will help. How do you walk away from doing nothing when you could do something, even if it doesn't solve the issue? That makes no sense.
And the ones, all I'm going to say is the ones who are still offering excuses and saying they're going to do nothing at all and are not moved to action after this latest mass casualty, vote them out.
Yeah.
Vote them out.
Yeah.
Well, President Scott Bowden, we appreciate it. Folks, last night, Steve Kerr, head coach of the Golden State Warriors, spoke to the media before the game, and he laid it out. This is what he had to say.
I'm not going to talk about basketball. Nothing's happened with our team the last 6 hours. We're going to start the same way tonight. Any basketball questions don't matter. Since we left shoot-around, 14 children were killed 400 miles from here, and a teacher. And in the last 10 days, we've had elderly Black people killed in a supermarket in Buffalo. We've had Asian churchgoers killed in Southern California, and now we have children murdered at school. When are we going to do something? I'm tired. I'm so tired of getting up here and offering condolences to the devastated families that are out there. I'm so tired of I'm tired of the moments of silence. Enough. There's 50 senators right now who refuse to vote on H.R. 8, which is a background check rule that the House passed a couple of years ago. It's been sitting there for 2 years. And there's a reason they won't vote on it, to hold on to power. So I ask you, Mitch McConnell, I ask all of you senators who refuse to do anything about the violence and school shootings and supermarket shootings, I ask you, are you going to put your own desire for power ahead of the lives of our children and our elderly and our churchgoers? Because that's what it looks like. It's what we do every week. So I'm fed up. I've had enough. We're going to play the game tonight, but I want every person here, every person listening to this to think about your own child or grandchild or mother or father or sister, brother. How would you feel if this happened to you today? We can't get numb to this. We can't sit here and just read about it and go, well, let's have a moment of silence. Yeah, go Dubs, you know. Come on, Mavs, let's go. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go play a basketball game. And 50 senators in Washington are going to hold us hostage. You realize that 90% of Americans, regardless of political party, want background check, universal background check. 90% of us, we are being held hostage by 50 senators in Washington who refuse to even put it to a vote, despite what we, the American people, want. They won't vote on it because they want to hold on to their own power. It's pathetic. I've had enough.
I think Steve Kerr certainly speaks for millions of Americans. Our final story, folks. Today, dozens of black women leaders and allies had a call to action rally in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. The speak out and silent protest was urged the passage of the federal voting rights legislation, calling on Congress also to protect reproductive rights for women that they say are under attack.
We all have the right to have children or to not have, but also get the care we need to raise our families in safe and sustainable communities. As we have witnessed already at the state level, and I'm right there in Mississippi, seeing abortion bans disproportionately affect women of color and low-income women. And these women face systemic and legal barriers accessing not only abortion, access to housing, accessing food. And we know that this is due to centuries of systemic racism and that black women are impacted the most. And so black women, you know, we face food insecurity, incarceration, lack of access to contraception. Today, here, saying that Congress must do its part to protect voting rights and also women's access to reproductive health and reproductive justice. We will not be silenced. And I have a young person that's going to come up and tell her truth, my daughter, Kaita Welcher.
Not be silenced. My name is Kaita Welcher, and I am 17 years old. I am with the Mississippi Black Women's Roundtable, and I am co-captain of Mississippi Black Youth Vote. I first want to say my heart goes out to the moms who lost their kids the other day. This year I lost my cousin. He was 15 years old due to gun violence. Excuse me.
Take your time. Take your time. Take your time. Take your time.
Should I be used to this? Fighting every year for basic human rights? Should I be used to being okay with being told what to do, what to wear, how to act, what to say? Should I be used to being controlled by this society and government? Do you want me to be silent? Fall under your command? I must be mistaken, but isn't this the land of the free? If this is the land of the free, why is my body and my decision being given to the government? If this is the land of the free, why am I not given the same right as men? Oh, I remember. Sexism and racism is baked into the DNA of this country that says all women and men are equal. if you want to be fair, then stop making these decisions based on your values and based off your opinions, and look at the facts and liberate your people. We have been fighting this fight for so long, and it seems as if when we get somewhere, we're always pushed back. But I am here to tell you that today and always that we are here. We are that barrier that will not let you push back any further.
I'm tired, y'all. I am tired of the hypocrisy. I am tired of the bullshit, and I'm tired of the lies. You cannot say you care about babies when you don't have sensible gun laws. You cannot say you are pro-life when you let our kids get killed in the streets. Get your damn hands off my body and my votes. I'm sorry for the pastors in the crowd, because I ain't got no attack in me, y'all. We are tired of fighting this every year. Every year there's something. And it's not, we out here in Congress, but we need to be in people's state houses, local houses. This is not starting here. It stops here. It stops right goddamn now. I'm sorry for the cussing, y'all. I have a speech, but I can't do it because I'm tired. I am a rape survivor. And I live in this state that if I hadn't got pregnant by my rapist, I would not be able to have an abortion. So you're going to sit here and tell me that you care about women, but you don't care about survivors. You don't care about children. Stop it. So just call a spade a spade. You care about white men. That's it. And you care about white babies. You don't care about nobody else. So I apologize to people. I don't apologize for people I offended. I don't. Because you don't care about offending my rights. You don't care about offending my vote. So you know what? Until you get your hands off my vote and my body, you're going to get this smoke every goddamn day. I'm Latoya Jones, and I approve this message.
All right, folks, let's go to today. Let's go to Louisiana, where Reverend Dr. William Barber, the Poor People's Campaign, joined forces with Step Up Louisiana, organization fighting for educational and economic resources. He tweeted today, we are standing in solidarity today with Step Up Louisiana, LA, and others demanding living wages and safe working conditions from Dollar General executives during their shareholder meeting. One of the state senators in Tennessee, candidate Justin Jones, posted this on Twitter about what happened when Reverend Barber and folks with the Poor People's Campaign showed up at this meeting in a public building. This is what happened today.
We can't come. We are members. We are shareholders. Okay. We are shareholders.
So we just closed.
But you saw us coming. We are shareholders. We are shareholders.
Can you let me check them?
We are shareholders.
Okay, let me check.
I'm a shareholder.
I hear you.
You're a shareholder. We're shareholders.
Yes. Don't put your hand on him now. Don't touch him now.
We're shareholders. We're shareholders. We're shareholders.
So we can go around the back.
We're shareholders.
Okay, let us go around the back.
Shareholders.
I'll go around the back and check in.
We're shareholders in the name of Jesus. In the name of Jesus.
Hallelujah.
In the name of Jesus.
Yes, Lord. Yes.
In the name of Jesus.
Yes, God.
I'm a shareholder.
Bring down the walls of injustice, God.
There's a cop that'll tell me I don't have a right, I'll stop.
Yes.
There's a public building.
Yes.
We have shareholders. Have shareholders. In the name of Jesus.
Hallelujah.
In the name of Jesus.
Open the door, God.
We are shareholders. We are shareholders. We don't want to disrupt. We didn't come here for violence. We are shareholders. See what they do to workers' media? We are shareholders. Scared of the people.
In City Hall.
Shareholder. In a City Hall. In a public building. Anybody can come in.
Yes.
We're shareholders. They didn't rent this. They didn't take this from the people. We're shareholders. They got stores in my state. We're shareholders.
Yes.
What did she say? We're shareholders.
Now, this is a public building.
We're shareholders. We're shareholders. Go get the sheriff, somebody.
All right, folks, don't forget, June 18th, here in the nation's capital, we will be broadcasting live from the Mall in Washington, along with Reverend Dr. Barber, Reverend Liz Theo Harris, and the Poor People's Campaign for their mass rally. And so we look forward to that on June 18th. That's it right there, the Moral March on Washington, the Mass Poor People's and Low-Wage Workers Assembly. And so we look forward to that. We'll, of course, broadcasting that live right here on the Black Star Network. Folks, our final final story. Adam Schechter of ESPN tweeted this about 4 hours ago. This is the tweet. Colin Kaepernick, who last played football in 2016, the same year he started kneeling during the national anthem to protest racial injustice, is scheduled to work out this week for the Las Vegas Raiders. League sources tell ESPN more NFL League Now. And so this is the tweet that they actually posted. Of course, the owner of the Raiders, Mark Davis, said a couple of weeks ago that if his coaches felt that Colin Kaepernick deserved a tryout or a workout, he would fully support that. And so this news 4 hours ago that Colin Kaepernick is going to have a workout with the Las Vegas Raiders. We'll certainly see what happens with that. Good luck to Colin, and we absolutely believe he belongs in the NFL. And so we'll see exactly what the Raiders will do. Folks, that is it for us. We were supposed to cover the primary results last night in Arkansas, Georgia, and other Texas and other states. We'll do that tomorrow right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Lots of great things we're going to be covering tomorrow as well, so we look forward to that. And so we want to thank all of you for watching today. Folks, if you're on YouTube, hit that like button. We should be at more than 1,000 by now. Same thing with Facebook. Share this information. Folks, your support matters to us greatly. This is why we're able to do what we're able to do. We want you to download our Black Star Network app. We're almost at 40,000. I want us to hit 50,000 by May 1st. We haven't, but we want you to download the app on all platforms: Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, and the Samsung Smart TV. Also, please support us with your resources, joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar you give goes to support this show. And so you can contribute. P.O. Box, your checks and money orders to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. And, of course, Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Folks, I don't know what other black-owned media is doing. I was there at the White House. I didn't see anybody else there. This is why we do what we do. We're the only black-owned media out here. Matter of fact, I don't even see any other media outlets out here. Maybe there's some folks who are down there. I think there's some protests or some folks who are down at the end there, just in front of Lafayette Park, because we literally are, folks, right now, just 2 blocks away from the White House. So that's where we are. And so I'm going to end it. Anthony probably can zoom in as much as he can to the White House. Let me step aside. And so, again, we certainly appreciate all of y'all for supporting us, watching us. We thank you for all that you do. It was indeed a good day. But as you heard our panel say, signing of that executive order was a first step. It is not the be-all to end-all, so we certainly want to see more things happen. So we want to do that. So, folks, that's it from us, from Black Lives Matter Plaza, here on the 2nd anniversary of the death of George Floyd. Well, thank you so very much. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Holla!